I'd like to welcome everybody back today to Alabama Care. We are at the Disability Rights and Resources Center in downtown Birmingham. And today I have the absolute pleasure of being with Mrs. Mallerie Carin and Mr. Logan Davis. And today we're going to be speaking a little bit about transportation, schooling, employment, transitioning, and some accessible sporting equipment, stuff like that. So at this time, I always like to hand it back over and allow you both to reintroduce yourselves. So Mr. Davis, if you would just give a little bit about yourself.
Hi, my name is Logan Davis. I'm a graduate student at UAB, and as well as currently right now, I'm an intern with Disability Rights and Resources in Birmingham under Mr. Dan Kessler, who is the executive director. And I primarily do research for the potential of Medicaid expansion and what that will mean for people with disabilities in Alabama.
Now, what is Medicaid expansion?
Don't ask me that.
No, so Medicaid does pay for a lot of services in Alabama.
Yes.
Are there some things that are specifically being targeted for expansion?
I don't know the answer to that question, but what I can answer is instead of people with disabilities going through SSDI for services and like medical services, and they can only go to specific hospitals through that, Medicaid expansion would allow people with disabilities to go to rural hospitals for services, I think.
That's a really big thing, because if you're not in a major city and you can get to that hospital quickly, I mean, you have to travel. And even with other types of insurance, like I have Blue Cross Blue Shield, and only some doctors are covered under that. So it's like you have to spend a lot of time figuring that out.
And that's another thing. They can only go to specific physicians under SSDI through Medicaid expansion. What I can gather right now is they can go to more physicians, and so there breaks that cycle of you can only get care in certain cities through certain physicians. They can access care pretty much anywhere.
One thing that I have found, I recently transitioned over from Medicaid to Medicare, and Medicare is designed originally like it's more disabilities and senior citizens, so there's more options with Medicare and they pay better. But it sounds like through Logan's expansion efforts, it would allow Medicaid to be more well-rounded, and like you were talking about, where you could go to other hospitals and that being a big deal. Because I know for myself, I have multiple disabilities. It's not just the CP that makes me use a wheelchair that's my only disability. And when you have multiple things and you need multiple doctors and multiple medications, access to those things and close access where transportation will run there is important. Because, like, if you need a doctor but you have to travel 40 minutes to the hospital, like, who can do that if you're having seizures, for example?
Yeah, and that 40 minutes is, you need to
critical.
be there in 5 minutes.
Right.
So I'd like to take this opportunity, Mallerie, if you would introduce yourself.
Okay, I'm Mallerie Carin. I'm currently a child studies major at Post University, and I'm a Paralympic athlete. I did Beijing, and I've been all over the world through Paralympic track and field, and I'm very athletic, and I just like having fun and living life.
So a little bit of backstory. Logan and I, we met at a UAB lecture. I guess it was probably about a month ago. Something like that, maybe 5-6 weeks ago. And I can't remember.
It all blends together.
And who was the presenter there? It was Mrs.
Dr. Tina Reuter.
Reuter. I always say Reuter for some reason, but it's Reuter.
Yeah.
She was great.
She was amazing.
Yeah, she brought up a lot of what I thought were important issues in just Birmingham alone.
Access in Birmingham, oh yes. Like the sidewalks, the map with every cracked sidewalk. That was amazing.
Oh,
and
There was
need
this
that.
diagram. Well, there was this diagram. She had the whole thing, a map of downtown Birmingham, where
Yeah.
like streets were closed, or it was like you couldn't take this path this day and the next path, that kind of thing.
Wow.
And I remember someone saying like their commute, they had to go one way and they couldn't. I forget what they were saying. That they couldn't get down on the sidewalk, and the next place down was like a mile down the road, and there was no way to get there because there was
Wasn't
construction.
that the Horizons?
I can't
The
remember.
Horizons, person that's over it, and he said that like there was no curb cuts right in front of his business, the Horizon School, and that tree fell,
That's what I think.
and
it was.
the next curb cut was like a mile down the road of going downhill,
Yeah.
right, or uphill, I forget.
Yeah, I remember him saying it was a big struggle to get to the next place that he could get down from the curb there.
Well, I'll tell you I live in Homewood, and I have a service dog, and she's athletic dog, lab shepherd mix. So I like to run just because I'm athletic too. So if I try to take her for a run or a walk or something, though, it's hard because in downtown Homewood, or even just shopping with my friends in downtown Homewood, it'll be like they have a curb cut one place, but then you go down, like you're going down to where you're supposed to get off at, and there's no curb cut, so you have to like jump the curb. Well, I have bad balance, so it's not just as simple as I can just jump all these curbs to get down. And I'm like, okay, it's good that you have the access of the ramp on one end, but it's like I don't know if they ran out of funding or they didn't finish it.
Yeah.
Or what have you, but there's no access point down at the other end, and my neighbor uses a power chair, so it's like she can't hop curb, whereas my manual chair does allow me the ability in some situations to hop curbs. But if you're in a power chair and you live in Homewood, you can't hop the curb, and it's like, how are you supposed to access the shops or to walk your dog safely without having to get in the street?
Yeah, it's like a great idea there, but someone never made that path all the way to its completion and didn't think about putting that down spot there at the end of the.
And talking about curb cuts, and like y'all were, the people who make the roads and don't have a disability, they don't think about how much of an impact it is if they don't put a curb cut certain places. Am I making sense?
Yes,
No,
totally, because I experienced that too, and it's like, and it's not necessarily, and this is what I want to get across to people too, is it's not necessarily like their fault or something they're doing intentionally. It's just that if you don't need it every day, you don't think about, oh, we need to make this lecture, available for the hearing impaired, or the street, curb cut accessible for power chairs. I mean, especially because disability is something that is individualized. Like, just because you have a disability doesn't mean you all function the same way. And so you've got to take all those variations into account. But if you don't live it, or if a family member or a friend isn't around to say, hey, I need it to be this way, you just don't think about it.
Yeah, I mean, just with that construction in Birmingham, I think it would be great if there was like a group of people that would use those curb cuts on a daily basis that were giving input, like, hey, in the design of it from the beginning.
Yes.
And maybe those construction companies and the city does some of that, but it could be done at a greater, capacity there.
And that's what I like about things like this, is like, I've always considered myself an open book. Like, if you see me out in public and you're curious about my disability, or why I use a chair or something, or how I do something, just ask me and I'll tell you, because I've always looked at it as, if we're not willing to educate people, then how will they ever learn? Because, I mean, myself, you don't know things unless you ask questions and unless you learn, unless you personally experience it. And so I've always been kind of open-ended that way, as far as ask me and I'll tell you.
I completely agree with you, Mallory. That whole mentality you have, ask me and I'll tell you. I just admire that, and
Thank you.
I agree with you, but yeah.
Do you feel like some people don't want to be asked? Or is that it's on an individual basis? Maybe some people aren't as outgoing. You two are very outgoing.
Yeah.
I feel like you guys can talk to anybody at any time.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
my wife says that, give me a brick wall and I'll talk his ears off.
Well, it's like, and I do think, like, what you just brought up with, are there some people that don't want to be asked or whatever? I have known people that, would rather not be asked, or maybe they're newly injured and so they're a little more self-conscious about it. So, like, they're not as open to tell you. And I work with them, or if I hear of someone doing that, or if I see someone out in public and they snap at the other person, I always try to say, look, I know you're frustrated or you're dealing with a lot or whatever, and I want to be sensitive to that, but at the same time, don't snap at people that are honestly just asking because they don't know. And so I kind of find myself in the middle. I'm just very outgoing, and like, I'm gonna, if I want to be involved, I'll ask to be involved. But some people, like you said, are shyer and they may not ask to be involved. So I think that's one reason, community-wise, I think community events and stuff
are great environment for that to
Yeah.
happen.
And it's great to, like, don't always, like, if you're going to college or high school or whatever, and I know they have their own little social groups or whatever, but don't always make the person with a disability or without, don't always make someone ask to join your group. Like, kind of be inviting, or like, just, hey, do you want to come? Because, like, how we met at the pool party, like, I was invited by one of your other friends to say, I was just chilling outside getting some sun, and they were like, do you want to come? And it was like, cool, yeah, sure. But I never would have been, I can be shy in new situations. And so I never would have been the type to, hey, can I come to the pool party? But, like, just make that available. But that's where groups like Disability Services and Alabama Cares and other groups come in to help make community events more accessible and understanding, because a lot of times people may want to include people, but I know a lot of my friends, if I hadn't been the forward person that just, this is how I do it, watch, I can do this, they wouldn't have known how to include me to go water skiing or some other type of thing like that.
And I feel like for different people, they take on that role at different points in their life and in different groups. If they're more familiar with the group and there's somebody new, maybe they're more likely to be outgoing in there and more inviting.
Yeah.
So it's like each person has the opportunity and takes that step when they're comfortable, with what they're doing. Kind of a little bit of backstory. I spoke how Logan and I met, but Mallerie and I met at a pool party. Was it 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
2 or 3 weeks ago, something like that. And we were hanging out, and then when you were talking about curb hopping here a few minutes ago, Mallerie sent me a video of, it was like this, I forget who does it, but they have like a bunch of motorcycles and like sport bikes, and they're doing these huge ramps. And there's a gentleman there who's in a wheelchair, and he did a front flip.
Yes.
Really?
It was crazy.
It's called WCMXing, which is wheelchair, like, it's like basically BMX for wheelchairs, and it's something I want to do. I haven't accomplished it yet, but it's something I want to do just because I'm an adrenaline junkie and a thrill seeker.
This guy was like 30 feet in the air at least, and she's like, yeah, I'm going to do this. My neighbor's going to record me, and I'm thinking, whoa.
Were you like, I don't care, Will?
I think I scared them more than I'm afraid of it, but I'm just an adrenaline junkie. Like, I've been skydiving and kayaking and skiing and all kinds of things, so that's just my personality, but...
I hate heights, so you'll never find me skydiving. I can't do that. I get up in that plane, and I feel like my parachute's not going to work, and just put me down right now. I want to be on the ground right now.
Well, but that goes back to, like, the idea of your disability doesn't have to be a limitation unless you let it. And I think Logan and I both feel this way, but not only do we feel that way, we, like, do it out in the community, Because, like, I told you before we went live that I was a little nervous because I don't normally do things in front of cameras, but it's all about pushing your limits and what you expect of yourself, and you can do more than you think you're capable of, whether you have a disability or not, if you allow yourself. But sometimes we get in our own way because we start thinking, oh, because of a disability or because of this reason or that reason, I'm not as capable to do this, or like I wouldn't be successful at this. And sometimes you don't know until you just push
try.
yourself and try.
Just give it a shot. I run through that a lot because I have like a lot of self-doubt about my abilities and what I can do. But at the end of the day, you just got to always try and see if it works. If it doesn't, that's okay. You go try something else.
Right. You can kind of, and I think it's neat because
You don't know what you can't do until you try.
Exactly.
right. And I think it's
Yep.
neat that there's a parallel between disability and able-bodied kind of experience some of the same things sometimes, because you were talking about you struggle with self-doubt, and I know other people, that other athletes that I've worked with, other kids that I've mentored, you know, they think because of a disability that they're limited, but it's more about your mind. Like, if you don't let your mind limit you, then you're not really limited.
I like that. One of the things that helps
I
me
do too.
One of the things that helps me sometimes is reading books of like people that have done it before. I always find, because if I can't get in contact with somebody, that would be the best thing. It's like, hey, is there out there somebody that could show me how to do this that's been through it before? But I usually go to books or like how to, think differently about stuff. That always helps me a lot.
Yeah, and that's what I like about us doing this, is it'll be a resource for other people, hopefully, or if they're watching now and have questions, like, feel free to ask. But it's like,
Yes.
this will
Feel
be a
free.
resource for people later in, like, if they're going through stuff later and they need some motivation or specific questions about something, maybe
Good.
they can find it here.
Good call on the chat. I didn't have my Facebook page open, so if you guys have any questions, please ask it in the chat, or you just want to say what's up. I'd like to talk a little bit more about transportation, maybe about how you guys got here today, and kind of the experience of going through that.
Okay, I use public transportation because I can't drive medically. I use Max Bus, and there's several other buses throughout Birmingham that run to different areas and are different price points depending on what you can afford, because affordability is another, like...
How much is the bus fare? Like,
Aspect
how
of
much
it.
was the bus fare today?
Okay, so the bus I ride is $2 per ride. So like there, like here and back will be $4. And then there's other, but you also have to look at, like, some of them run like different areas. So say you lived in Center Point, you may have to get a different bus.
Oh, like
Then-
you'll take 2 buses to get there, kind of thing.
Right. Or like a class tram may run to Center Point, whereas the Max Bus that I ride doesn't necessarily run to Center Point. So you kind of just have to investigate and ask friends or play it by ear and figure out which bus works best for you,
Yeah.
just based off that. But I mean, a lot of people think like not being able to drive can be a limiting factor. And there has been days where I woke up and I was like, darn, I really wish I had a car and could drive and was allowed to drive. But like, if you have good supportive friends, it's also helpful, because if they want to go have a coffee or something like that, they're often like, I keep myself strong enough where I can load my chair, I can get meat in, like, so if you want to go have coffee with me, then all you have to do is ask, and if we're both free schedule wise, we can go. I do that a lot too, so I have kind of both options,
Yeah.
just because it makes it easier to like coordinate with friends, because then you're not saying, oh, well, I'll come, but you may have to wait 30 minutes to an hour, because it's a shared ride system. So you can't just, like, it's not, you have to schedule the day before, and then it's a shared ride system. So like today, I got my ride to come here at 11, and I didn't get here till 11:45 because we had to drop someone else off, which is something you have to prepare for with the bus. Like, you know that in advance, but it's something you have to plan for if you're doing employment, school.
Now, do they tell you how many stops they have that day so you can try and plan that out?
No.
So you find that when you get on the bus?
Yes. Like,
So even if you plan it regularly, but today's like a busy day, you'll find that out as soon as you get on the bus. Like, oh,
Correct.
wow, there's a lot of people that need to be taking place. You know.
Yeah, and that's one reason I said I was doing online college now. That's one reason is because it was, I'm not going to say it was an obstacle, but like if my class started at 8, I could schedule my ride for 6 as soon as they opened.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean you're making an 8 o'clock class.
Yeah.
So it just became available to me and more accessible. It made college less stressful and life more accessible by being able to do something online, because then the transportation, I don't have to worry about, am I going to be on time to class today? Am I going to be late? Am I going to need to explain to the professor why I'm 20 minutes late for a test when I scheduled 2 hours earlier? Then I had to be there. So it's not a scheduling conflict. And that's another thing with employment. You need to either have other options where you know you're going to be able to ride with a coworker or something and be on time, or you need to make sure that your employer knows and is flexible about the bus could cause me to be late, you know? And I don't know Logan's experiences with transportation, but that just kind of gives a glimpse into my world.
Yeah. And Logan, would you like to say anything about the transportation around Birmingham? And I'm only familiar with the bus system really through word of mouth, but even if you're in, you don't live in Birmingham, I don't know what the bus system looks like in Tuscaloosa or, an hour outside of Birmingham. I don't know if they even have those ride sharing things. So then it's like you got to go to Uber or friends and family.
Or taxis or
taxis, and that adds up.
And
Taxis are extremely expensive.
Well, it's like you get a taxi to go to a shift for work, and the taxi to and from could end up being like a third to a half of your shift pay.
I ran into some of that. I worked weekends. Well, the bus at the time didn't run weekends. And it was like $5 there, $5 back, because luckily I worked at Lakeshore Foundation where I was 5 minutes from work, where my apartment is located. I was 5 minutes from work, but it was still $5 each way, so that's $10. Well, when you do that when you do that like 4 times a month, so that's $40 a month, and then I know for me, I'm on SSDI, like disability, and so my funds aren't unlimited, so it's like you have to take all those
you have to budget it
things
out
into account, because like using the Uber and stuff, like I've heard good things, but it's like, okay, you've got to know in advance how much, because you have like a limited amount of money to travel with, so you have to know in advance like how much is this going to cost you and budget for it, so that you're sure you don't run out of transportation money to work.
Yeah, especially like at the end of the month, if you're low on funds and you still got to get to school, you still got to get to work, it's like you really have to plan in advance there.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of uncertainty, it sounds like, in some of that cost associated with transportation sometimes.
Yeah, because like does the taxi driver take the wrong way or get lost? And
that could add up to an extra $5 or $10 really quick, and it's like, hey buddy, I do this 10 times a month. What's going on now?
Yeah, exactly. And you can't really control that. Like, you don't have control over whether they take the longer route or catch a red light or get lost.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point with the red light. I mean, there's a lot of things that they can't control that, maybe there's an accident.
Right.
And that adds up to an extra $5-10. What about, I'd like to talk a little bit about education and schooling. So you guys are currently both in school. And you are doing online, and Logan, you are doing in class, correct? Or kind of a mix?
Correct, but during the summer, I'm doing this internship all summer, and in the fall, I've already registered for classes, and I'll be attending class one night a week on Wednesday, and then I'll be taking 2 classes online. But this is for my master's degree in public administration, and I graduated from UAB with my bachelor's degree in political science. And I did that in class, and it was great.
What made you want to go into political science?
Well, Wow.
This is like getting deep into it now.
All right. So after my injury, I have a traumatic brain injury. I couldn't do a lot of things that I wanted to join the military after high school. Couldn't join the military, and I was like, well, crap. What do I do now?
It's like a early life crisis there.
Yeah. But and I still didn't know, and so I was just getting my associates in general studies to transfer, and I did an internship with Congressman Mike Rogers.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
I'm
I loved
impressed.
it, and I met the congressman, and it was so great, and so I knew from then that I wanted to study politics because I saw the impact it has for everybody, not just for people with disabilities, but everybody, and for people with disabilities. Writing policy and getting laws passed, and so I was like, I want to major in political science, and so UAB had a political science degree, and I was like, I'm going there. And my community college that I went to, Gaston State Community College, had a joint program. It's called Joint Admissions Program, partnered with UAB. And so I did that, and I had a UAB student ID when I was in Gaston. It was awesome. I felt accomplished.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
But
How did you get a hold of the congressman there? How did that come about there?
well, at my community college, I was in Student Support Services, SSS, and the director had a daughter named Virginia, and Virginia was a I forgot what she was, but she was a person below the college where I had class, and so we got to talking, and she had a best friend who did an internship with, I forgot who. He was a senator here. And from there, she got hired as the press secretary for Mike Rogers. And so when she reached out to her girlfriend, it kind of just set the ball, set the motion rolling. And I forgot, yeah. And so the press secretary called me and was like, I don't know if she called me or I called her, but I did an internship, and she helped me do an internship in the Anderson office. So I would do the internship, then go to class, or vice versa.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
it was great.
That's
So there was
incredible.
really kind of word of mouth there. You were friends with friends and being vocal about what you wanted to do and your passion, and it came back, and you got that internship. And it was
Yes, sir.
cool that you got to do it up in that area too, so you could double down with the internship in school.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of things, like, you just have to take the initiative, because a lot of things in my life have been through contacts of friends and like through word of mouth, but I think a lot of it is too. And you brought up like disability support services with Gadsden State, which I know it's named different things. Each university, it's normally named something different, but they all have a disability sector of, if you attend their college, you can get services for your disabilities through school. But a lot of it is you have to be you have to be willing to ask. And you have to know the right questions to ask or the right people to connect you to ask to get the services you need. But my biggest piece of advice is, if you want to do something, or if you have a passion, find your passion and ask questions and be involved and be vocal. And even if you're not as vocal, that's why earlier I said, like, don't always make the person have to ask to be invited. Like, as people, we all just need to be more inclusive and to think about, okay, people around me may not be as active and as outgoing and as vocal as me, so maybe I can try to reach out to them and say, would you like to do this with us? Because they might want to, but then they don't really know how to ask.
Yeah, or feel uncomfortable asking. There's sometimes where I feel uncomfortable asking for stuff, and it's nice to have a friendly, like, hey, do you want to come?
Yeah,
you want to check this out?
Yeah,
yeah, I do. I've been waiting for you guys to ask me.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like with the disability support services and stuff, though, it's really important that you ask or that you have people to help you, because if, like, it can change your whole college or high school or different things experience if you get good accommodations or understanding people. Because, like, I know for me, my college journey has kind of bounced around a bit. I've been to 3 different universities, and I'm still working on my bachelor's. I want to be a special education teacher, but it's been an up and down roller coaster ride for me because of getting diagnosed with extra medical conditions. And so some of the advice I got was just medically withdraw because it won't hurt your GPA or your transcript, and then start over. But I found myself looping in that I was taking the same class, the
like
same night.
101 3 semesters in a row.
Right, the same class. Like, I would stay with the same 9 classes that I was trying to pass, because I would get to midterms or to finals and I would have a seizure or another medical problem that then they were like, medically withdrawal. Well, which didn't hurt my GPA and stuff, but it set me back in a way of finishing because I kept taking the same 9 classes.
Yeah, it's your time. You spent that time there. You've already mastered the content.
Yeah.
It's almost like I wish the teachers in this school would just kind of let you pick up, where you left off at that point.
And like, see, that's one reason for me, and this is just for me personally, that's one reason post and online university has worked best for me, because then if I'm in the hospital, I take my laptop, I take my charger, I still do school, and they're flexible and it works. And so I'm not having to repeat the same 9 classes and never getting anywhere, because I would have good grades, and then it's midterms or finals, and they're like, well, if you take a 0 on here, it's going to give you a D instead of an A that you had. And I'm like, I don't want a D instead of my A. Thank you very much.
Well, that's like where they have one test, or like your midterm and your final make up 75% of your grade, and you got to ace those,
Yeah, in order to...
And if you're not able to take them that day or something comes up, then you get a 0 for that thing.
Yeah, and that's one nice thing with the university I'm with now. Like, if I have a problem, I just email the professor, and they're like, yeah, you can take it. Like, they give you an extension based on your medical problems or whatever, and you can take it later. And so then not only am I able to stay in the classes, I'm able to be successful at them. So I actually have a hope of being a teacher one day. And my mindset with that is I want to give back, because coming at it from the alternate side of, I've been a kid with a disability in schools, so now I want to take that in reverse and like educate the people the coworkers that I'll have, and the principals and the kids, that just because you have a disability doesn't mean you can't be whatever it is you want to be. And I think sometimes, again, not out of doing it on purpose, but they don't know. So if a young kid with a disability tells somebody they want to be a political science major, a teacher may look at that and say, and not really think that this person is capable of being a political science major or whatever. And my stance on that is, you're capable of being whatever you want to be if you're driven enough. If that's your true passion, you can do it.
I feel like that's huge, because a lot of people might say, hey, I want to do this, but then their actions don't match what they want.
Yeah.
But as long as you put in the work, there's nobody that can tell you you can't do that. Have you guys ever come across a scenario where somebody's been like, maybe you should think about something different, or head in a different direction, and you've had to look at them and be like, no, this is what I want to do, I'm going to do it?
Yes.
Yeah.
many times, with my degree in school, and as far as also like, I made Paralympics with racing track at 18. And there were people
Wow.
that there were
I
people
know, right?
there were people
It's
that
like incredibly young to be on the Paralympic
well,
team.
I was the second youngest athlete on that Beijing China team. The other athlete
I've never
was
been to like any of these places you're talking about.
was-
Beijing, China, like Brazil.
14. But my point with bringing that up and the school thing is, everybody thought, like, some people, not everybody, but a lot of people thought, oh, she's too young. And I had only been racing track for 4 years because I got kind of started later in the game because I didn't find Lakeshore until I was already 14. And a lot of kids start wheelchair racing and stuff when they're like 6 years old and grow up through the program, which is also amazing. But they said, oh, she's too young and she hasn't been doing it long enough, like she doesn't have the experience to make the team. Well, I went for it anyway just because that's who I am, and I made the team, and so it was like, now what? Like, because they can't tell me I'm too young anymore. But there was people that thought that, you know, I couldn't teach because I want to teach younger kids just because I have a passion for kids. And they're like, well, how is she gonna like keep up with, you know, 20 kindergartners or first graders? You haven't seen me run down children in my chair. So, I mean, it's
Just
possible.
hearing you say that sounds
Like,
funny, though.
Yeah, I'm not talking about being mean to them. I'm talking about keeping up with them. I'm more capable than people realize, you know?
Yeah, if people are saying, like, oh, you're too young, it's like, well, come on the line. Let's race. 'Cause
Yeah,
that's
like-
really all that matters, you know?
Yeah. And it's just like, that's why I always tell people in general and kids, like, use the doubters to fuel you. Don't let them deny you, because if you listen to what every person says or everybody's opinion, there's always going to be those people that think you shouldn't do something or you're not capable
There's
of
always
doing
going to
something.
be haters.
Yeah.
Always going to be haters.
But-
Don't
like
let
that.
the haters drag you down.
No. Take them with you. Like, because that's kind of how I've approached life.
Prove 'em wrong.
Is I let
That's
the
good.
doubt and the worry and the people that think I can't, I let it fuel me to be that much more motivated to do it. And then I go back and I'm like, okay, now what's next? Like, I always try to focus on keep going, keep improving. Like, I'm never really satisfied with, like, where I get. I'm always wanting to take it one step further, okay? And it's like, instead of asking if someone can do something, look at it in a way of asking how. You know, whether it's, and it doesn't matter if it's sports or schooling or employment or, like, those are just life lessons that can be applied to everywhere. Is instead of saying, if this person with a disability can do this, say, how can I help this person do this, or how can they accomplish
Or
something?
when they're going to do it.
Right.
What was, or I'll ask, I would rather sit in a classroom because I feel like I get a different education, but I like the freedom of doing the online. How do you guys feel about that? Just in general, like online and in-person education. You feel like there's any difference there?
Well, I mean, I can see where you come from, where your experience with online class, but it's funny because I need the teacher interaction because I'm an extrovert. You are too?
Yeah, I gotta have that teacher there because if there's
Yeah.
a question there, but everybody learns different.
I feed off of the I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I like the interaction between teacher and I can ask questions whenever I need it. But yeah, that's just me though.
I'm
kind of the same way.
I was gonna say that I think it's very individualized.
It is.
Because online works for me because of the type of
Don't punch the table, you'll break your head.
the type of student I am. Like,
Try to keep
it's
that in mind.
it's how I learn, you know. Whereas, so just like we were talking about disabilities being individualized, so is the way people learn, just like you said a while ago. So it's like everything works different for different people. So while I find online to be more flexible and yeah, I can learn that way, he finds the fact that he needs the teacher there. So I just think it's important for you to always know yourself. Like, you have to figure you out and know how you work and be okay with it. Like, you have to be okay with the fact of, no, I need the teacher there. And you have to be, it goes back to us talking about, you know, disability support services for college and transition meetings for high school and from middle school to high school and stuff. You have to know yourself and figure out what works for you, and then you have to be willing to go say, all right, this is what I need and this is why I need it and this is how I need it, and like, this is what's going to help me and make me be successful.
And I mean, I'm not just totally bashing online school because to be honest, I really haven't done it. And I mean, I always choose the in-person classes, but in the MPA program, I am sure that I will have my fair share of online courses, and I'll just have to adjust accordingly, and yeah. So I mean, I just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah.
That I
It wasn't like you were like, I'm never doing online.
Yeah, no, I was like, I'm
no.
never doing online. It's
No.
just like, no, it's like I haven't ever done online class, so I can't really
Correct.
give an honest opinion.
Right. And I understand that because, like, it just so happens that the way my schooling worked that I had experience with both.
Yeah.
And, you know, but even just the fact that I've done both, and okay, one works better for me. But if Alex were to do both, he may still find that I need that teacher there. And that's completely fine. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't, as long as you're getting your education and you're getting to where your goals are in life and what you want out of life,
Then nothing else matters.
it doesn't matter how you get there. We can all get there at different speeds, because I know I've been trying to do college for like 9 years now. And, you know, everybody, when you leave high school, everybody sets out with this 4-year thing. And so for a while, it was a mental thing for me. I was like, okay, I'm supposed to be done in 4 years, at the maximum 5 years. And because of my disabilities and stuff, it didn't work that way. And people were like, you know, and so finally when my friends just said, quit beating yourself up about it, you deal with more, like with the seizures and stuff, you're dealing with more than other people deal with, so quit beating yourself up about it. And I had to honestly take a mental checklist of myself and be like, you know what, I'll get there when I get there, it's okay. And that's something that I want, like, people to realize from this life, this live about life, is that you don't have to, like, there's not a time limit, don't put that kind of pressure on yourself, because there's enough pressure in the world without anybody needing extra pressure from yourself.
Very true.
To like, I have to be done in 4 years or this is not going to work. You're still going to get to be a teacher, or you're still going to get to do political science, whether it's a 6-year thing, a 2-year thing. The time frame shouldn't matter if it's your passion and what you want to do.
I saw a poster the other day. It said, it was something along the lines of, this is your goal, and this is how you think you're going to get there. And it was a straight road.
Yeah.
And then it was like, this is your goal, and this is how you're actually going to get there. And there were like loops, and there were like caution tapes all. Yes. But they all ended up at the goal.
Yeah.
You know? So
Everyone has their own pace. And you shouldn't judge a person by their ability to get to their goal, because in the long run, they still get there, whether it's a year or 24 years. I mean,
Yeah.
they still get there. It's okay.
And it's funny that you say that, because I'm a very competitive person just by my nature. So, I mean, sisters, cousins, my whole life. And it's like, so I think that's part of where my mentality of it has to be 4 years came from, was because I'm competitive. So if everybody else is doing it in 4 years, then I have to be the same as everyone else, or like I feel behind or whatever. But you just kind of, as you age and learn and grow, you realize that's not what matters in this grand scheme of things.
well, it's like if everybody's road was the same, that would be boring. It would be
It
boring
would.
life.
Yeah.
Would.
You know?
It would. I mean,
I used to
yeah.
ride a motorcycle, and I can tell you the most fun roads are the ones that go like this. and they have fresh, clean pavement. And,
Yeah.
You said you
That's
used to ride a
awesome.
motorcycle, right?
I don't anymore.
Good, thank you.
I tell you, I got lucky to get out of that phase because I had it in high school and early college, and I was not
You
very
had
smart.
a motorcycle when you were in high school?
Yeah, I bought it when I was 17. Well, it's a funny story though because
What?
I was living at home and
Why?
I'm an adrenaline junkie a little bit, you know, and so I wanted a motorcycle, but I was still 17, so I had to get my parents' permission. And I went to my dad.
Sort of like getting a tattoo.
Yep, exactly. And I was like, hey, Dad, I really want to get a motorcycle. I'm still living at your house, so I want to be respectful.
Yeah.
And he was like, you're not getting a motorcycle.
You should have listened to your dad.
So then I went through all the statistics, and it came back like a surprising amount of motorcycle accidents had to do or involved with alcohol. Either the driver of the motorcycle or the driver of a car that hit the motorcycle, kind of a thing. And so I presented this data and, reassured him that I wasn't going to be the one using alcohol if that thing happened.
Yeah.
And so he was still like, no, not really. We're not, not going to let you get a motorcycle. Then I had a conversation with my grandmother, his mom. And I was
My
like,
gosh.
And I was
You
like,
didn't go to his mom, did
well,
you?
no, I'm not to like ask, but I was just like, yeah, grandma. She asked me how I was doing. I've always had a good relationship with my grandparents. And she's like, how's everything going? I'm like, well, I'm a senior in high school and I kind of want a motorcycle. I've saved my money. I've worked and, Dad won't let me get it. And she goes, he won't. Well, he had one when he was your age. And I was like,
Yeah.
so I went right back to Dad. And I was like,
Dad,
So,
your
Grandma
mom
said-
told on you.
And finally he was like, all right, if you want a motorcycle, let's go check it out. You got to learn how to drive it, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Ended up getting it, but I was lucky to get out of those years without a scratch on me. I was, I was dressed like this in just shorts and a t-shirt doing way more speed than I should have.
Yeah.
So
See, that would be, I've been on one and it was my friend's and he was driving and I was just being the passenger, but that would be my danger point if I got one.
I actually
it would
love
be-
motorcycles. They're fun, but you can have a lot of fun on a motorcycle just going from 0 to
I have no
40.
balance.
Yeah. Well, balance would play a part in it.
Yeah. You can have a lot of fun on motorcycles. You don't have to go crazy fast on them. You can just, the wind being out on a nice day kind of thing can be really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, so is rolling the windows down in the car.
Very true. And a lot safer. And the thing with motorcycles is a lot of times it's not the person that's driving the motorcycle, but it's someone that's not paying attention to a single light coming their way, on the other drivers on the road.
Yeah.
So.
And yeah, it's probably better that I just rode my friends that didn't have one because I'm the same adrenaline junkie that would be like flying down the highway and.
I sold it. I think I had it for 3 years, and I sold it in college. And looking back on it now, I got lucky that I sold it at that point.
Yeah.
I still want another motorcycle, but I know myself well enough not to get one.
No,
That can be true.
please don't.
I want to talk a little bit about still on the schooling. You mentioned DSS and maybe some services that are available in that college area. What are some examples of those, or how do you go about getting them?
Student support services, DSS, TRIO is an academic service that you can get through, or you can receive through if you have a disability or low income, and it's federally mandated.
Meaning that every university has to have it, some type of support service there.
Either have to have TRIO or student support services. Student support services was in my community college because it was, because my community college was smaller than a university, and TRIO is written into an act.
Like the ADA?
No, it's totally separate from the ADA, I think TRIO has its own separate act, and it encompasses veterans upward bound. It's been a while since I've done this research. Veterans upward bound.
But going into college, was that something that you made contact with them? And I know you said you worked there during college. at the at Gadsden.
Mm.
Maybe I heard that wrong though.
So, for
I think
me,
you did.
Maybe I did hear that wrong. I thought you said you worked at that organization there at college, but maybe not.
I worked for the Department of Government before it was named Department of Political Science and Public Administration. And I worked there, and yeah.
Yeah, I
and
totally misheard that then. I thought you said the other one. I apologize. I'm like pulling that out of
okay.
thin air.
but
It's okay. Like,
Yep. I heard this word. I'm going to throw it back out. I'm not sure where I heard it, and let's see what happens.
but mine, I went through.
I'm sorry. Did I complete the thought process?
Well, what I was...
Because I had a thought, and then I didn't mean to cut you off,
Oh, no,
Mallory.
you're
No,
fine.
we're having a conversation.
You're fine.
What I was kind of wondering is, are those services available at all colleges, and what type of services are available? And have you gone through that process? And if there was another college kid or a high school kid watching, what would you kind of say to help them through that process?
Get in contact with your university's disability support services, or student services. They're one and the same. Another thing you might want to do is look up to see if your university or college has a student support services SSS or TRIO TRIO program, because they accept individuals. TRIO does, and student support services, they accept people with disabilities, and they have tutoring. They have graduate. Well, SSS is at a community college level, and that has free tutoring, access to a computer lab which has free printing, and they go and tour universities. And I mean, my community college toured a lot of universities, but I only went to one, UAB, because I was like, I'm dead set on this one. And I was technically already a student there, but I wasn't taking classes. And get in contact with TRIO for those individuals who are at universities. TRIO accepts individuals with disabilities. I think I had to have a recommendation from my community college that I should be a TRIO person, student, and yeah, that's my advice. And take advantage of the free tutoring, and yeah.
Come on in.
Come on in, Miss Heather.
Miss Heather Sims.
Is your name Mallerie?
Yes.
Your bus is here.
Oh, I canceled it.
Don't worry, I can always drop you off.
No,
if
I
you want.
canceled it.
Okay.
I canceled my bus already.
Oh, well, they're here.
Oh,
Here's the driver.
Yeah.
I canceled. Did
Okay.
they not tell you?
No,
Sorry.
that's all right. You know how Max does.
Yeah. Sorry.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks. My advice as far as college goes is I went through vocational rehab, which is local, like
Oh, and I did that too.
you just
Through VR.
Yeah.
you just
I'm
look
sorry.
up like
Thank you for reminding me.
no problem. You just look up like vocational rehab in your area, and most places are supposed to have one, and then they'll meet with you and discuss like where you want to go to school and your options and everything, and then they'll assign you a counselor and they'll help you make that transition into like to get in touch with the disability support services. But it also doesn't hurt for you to like reach out on your own too and just say, look, this is, and you can do that a lot of times before you technically start classes. And like with disability support services through UAB and other local schools and everything, or even through online college, for example, I contacted them before I began classes, and we had either an over the like online, it was over email, and when I actually physically attended classes, it was a meeting before I started in the summer. And we went in and we laid out, okay, this is your person to contact if you're having problems with your professors, like not following the written out instructions. And they would tell you stuff like that. And they would also discuss what accommodations you needed and how to go about getting those. And so your coordinator would basically write a letter saying what, like, based on your disabilities and your medical documentation that you would bring them, your coordinator or your person of contact would write a letter to your teachers or something like that saying what you needed, what accommodations you needed and why, because of based on whatever medical things you had going on. For me, it was...
Sometimes they can't disclose those medical...
No, they don't disclose your medical, like, history or whatever.
They won't tell the teacher, like, the medical background. They'll just say that this person would enjoy the benefits of these
accommodations.
They'll just name
based
the
on the
accommodation.
fact that based on the fact that they have, like, disabilities, but they don't disclose, like, your medical information.
And they don't even have to include the based on. They can just write, it's like, these are the accommodations that I recommend for Susie Q. And that's all they have to say. Being the professor or the instructor would then, upon seeing those accommodations, they would have to implement those. And it was up to the student whether they disclosed the disabilities and reasons why they request those accommodations. Personally, me, I always scheduled an appointment with the professor after the first day of every class, and I would go in and I would sit and be like, Dr. Brown, these are the accommodations I'm asking for. These are the accommodations that I requested. Sorry. And this is the reason why. And I tell them my story. And they tell me, I was like, you don't really have to tell us. You don't have to tell us why you're requesting these. And I was like, no, I know I'm not supposed to. I know that you can ask me by law, but I would feel more comfortable if you knew where I was coming from. So I waived that right, and this is why.
I feel like that makes a lot of impact.
And I mean, I like to keep an open dialogue. So, and I think I'm an open book.
Yeah.
So that's why I like to do that. And so it would, after I do that, the professor would then understand why, and in some cases they would respect me a lot more. But that's just me.
Or they're, like, more willing to help you. I do the
Yes.
same. I do the same thing. Like, but it's just like, okay, if you're friends with a person, and so they know you a little bit deeper, they can understand, okay, why does she need the time extension for tests? Or why does she need to use a calculator on every math thing because she has a math learning disability? Like, but if you don't share those things with them,
They don't know.
whatever, they don't know.
It's like jumping off the page instead of just being a number, like student number 22. It's jumping off that page and connecting with that teacher. I think it's very important.
Right, and not only even just, even if you're not as comfortable at first, just introduce yourself and, hi, how are you? And give them your name. And so that way they put a face with a name too. Because it's the same thing in, like, employment opportunities, job interviews, like stuff like that. Make them remember you. Don't just let your name or your number or a number be your number 22, or
don't become a statistic.
Oh yeah, I like that word, statistic there.
Just if you create, I mean, it's like relationships and bonds. If you create them, then you're more likely to get opportunities. And that's why I said just try to be as open as possible or as friendly and outgoing. Like, don't let things hold you back. But one thing I wanted to highlight too is there was a key difference between online doing disability support resources or like accommodations for college and going actually to the school. When I went to the school, my case coordinator didn't take my letter of accommodation to the teachers. I had to. Whereas online, my case coordinator emails them to all my teachers prior to class. Like, I don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
And like, I went into post the online college all gung-ho to, okay, I've got to email all my teachers, thinking I had to do it myself,
And they're
because
like, Mallory, we're
yeah,
we're good.
and they're like, we already did that for you, or we already do that for you. And I was like, wait, you do that for me? Because I remember I'm a very anxious person, and I know it doesn't necessarily seem like that with me being on video, but it's like, if I don't know the people or whatever, it's like I'm very anxious, or I'm very, like, I don't ask for help because I'm independent. So it's like I'm very hesitant to say, will you help me with this? Or will you give me these accommodations? Like, the thought of doing that, like, I used to go my freshman year and stuff, and I was like shaking.
Yeah.
And so I'm like vibrating, and I'm like, what if they say no? What if they think I'm weird? What if they, and you have all these what ifs in your head and everything. And then you transition to that online where they do it for you, and you're like, oh, this
Thank
is
you.
so much easier. Thank you.
you.
and there is that difference too with it being online. Like, you're just emailing, so you don't have to see the look of like disappointment on their face if they don't approve, kind of thing. So it made things a little easier from that aspect too, for me.
I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine. And we are right at about an hour now. I didn't know if anybody had a cap on time. I forgot to ask ahead of time. So
Not really, no.
okay, perfect. You mentioned something that I'd like to transition into, and that's employment. So kind of maybe if you guys have any stories of kind of your earliest employment opportunity. I remember when I got my first job when I was 12, and it was probably not very illegal. It was paid cash, but I wanted the money and I worked my butt off. But are there some things that you guys have done that have helped your employment chances throughout up to this point, and things that maybe you're starting to do as you're starting to exit the school, exit college?
I did the internship with Mike Rogers, Congressman Mike Rogers. That was a big one.
That's a huge door opener right there.
Yeah, a little bit. And then,
A little bit. Little bit.
don't you like my yeah. And so, in that, and I know Mr. Graham Sisson, and he recommended to the governor that I be on the State Rehabilitation Council, and I'm now a sitting council member of the State Rehabilitation Council. And additionally, about this, I'm not just a member of the SRC, but I am a chairman of the bylaws subcommittee on the State Rehabilitation Council.
That's a lot of big words for me. I'm
Yeah.
not sure exactly what all that means, but it sounds very prestigious. So I'm gonna have to research.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So do you go down to Montgomery for that?
I do 4 times a year.
Really?
Wow.
I do, yes, sir.
That's cool.
And
I know nothing about that world. Like the
Then
writing
I'm-
of the print,
and I'm
Yeah.
allowed to advocate for individuals with disabilities through that, because the SRC is the final yay or nay say so everything ADRS related,
Cool.
and so
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I like it.
But
Yeah, and you get to advocate, for
Yes.
future change there,
Yeah.
and really put it into print of, this is where the community should be going and where it should be in 5 or 10. And if we do this now, it'll pay off later. Sometimes I feel like too many times it's like a quick payoff, or if we do it now, this will have a return for the state or these, this community in a year. But
Yeah.
you really have to think kind of long term there.
long-term. And I like the fact that, like, those type of boards and stuff, they get people with disabilities
use restroom.
involved in the process, because a lot of times, again, no one's trying to do it, but if you have people making legislative decisions or things for people with disabilities that have no experience with a disability or with a family member with a disability or stuff, they don't always know what way to push things or what way
It's
would
like-
benefit the most people.
They have really good intentions. I think everybody has good intentions
yes.
there, but putting like it into the daily life, it's not going to look exactly like you're thinking that you're writing it down.
Right. if you don't, and so I like the idea of consulting people that live it on a daily life, because they can make you think of things or give you insights that otherwise you wouldn't get. And my employment stories are much more humble than that of Logan's. But I went through, I took a break from college for a few years because of medical things, and I went through job placement, like job training.
Through ADRS?
I don't remember if it was through D.R.R or not, but my early experience wasn't that great because I was basically told, you're not done with college yet. You've never had a job before, so we can't market you. You need job experience to get a job. And I'm like,
Why?
but that's an oxymoron, because how do I get job experience if no one will hire me to give me a job? And I kept telling my job coach, I was like, I'm capable of a lot of things. Do you want to see? Like, ask me. Like, let me show people. Because I'm kind of a person that, like, I want to show you what I can do. Instead of just talking a bit. I mean, we can talk about it, but if I show you, then you'll actually believe that I can do this, And so I was kind of discouraged, so I backed off the employment thing for a while.
So, like, where were you looking for employment during that time? Can you remember any?
Like, I can't remember any specifics necessarily exactly. I was just looking for anything, and I was like, I can definitely do reception and, like, answering the phones, stuff like that. And I wanted, like, I do remember that because I'm like out there, I went and asked a couple of gyms, like, even, can I do, like, the reception, not necessarily be a trainer, because I had no qualifications to be a trainer, but can I do reception and stuff? And they were kind of, like, they just weren't comfortable with it because they didn't know.
Yeah.
And so then I took a break and was like, you know what, I'm not going to stress about this kind of thing. And then I was working out at Lakeshore Foundation, and and I heard through just conversations that there was an opening at the front desk reception desk. So I was like, I'm gonna, like, so I went running in there and got an application, and I'm scribbling it down and writing down my my contacts and calling people to be references and stuff, and I was like, I'm just gonna, I mean, it can't hurt. All they can say is no, and I guess that's one of my biggest employment, like, suggestions, is put yourself out there. If there's a passion you have, or if there's something you want to do, ask. And put yourself out there to be told no, because if you don't put yourself out there to be told no, you can't be told yes either. So I went and put my application in, and I got a call back for the interview process. And then I did that, and it was terrifying because they were asking me things, and I was just nervous because that's my personality. And then I got the reception job, and then I moved from part-time to full-time, and then I had to change positions because of disabilities, which is okay. Like, I'm currently doing school full-time, so I'm not working anywhere at the moment, but that's okay. But now I have that experience to rely on, experience to look back on. And like, in my degree with college, in September, I'm going to start practicum teaching, where I, like, go into the school and work with a teacher to learn, to bridge the gap between what I learned in school and actually applying it to teaching in real life. And I'm kind of terrified, but you've got to put yourself out there to get what you want, or to get where you want. So that's my biggest, like, employment advice.
One thing I picked up from that, and we were just talking, Mallerie was employed at Lakeshore there for before schooling, and she used to work out there, so it'd be pretty sweet. I imagine, like, kind of if you clock out, then you get to go work out. You know, it's like it's a double whammy. Going to work, and then when you clock out, you're like, I'm gonna go work out real quick.
Yeah, or like I would do it in reverse, honestly, because the bus, you know, I would always get there a little early to make sure my transportation had me there on time. So I would get there early, and so then I would look at my time, and I would be like, okay, I'm here like 2 hours early today, so I can work out for an hour, then go shower, then go to the desk and do my job, you know. But I guess that's just my advice is, if you have a passion, like, and don't be afraid to like intern or volunteer places, because one reason that I got hired for the Lakeshore job was I spent many hours through they have a volunteer program, and I went and I said, I'll do anything. Like, I basically threw myself out there and said, I'll do anything. I just want to, you know, I said, here's my, like, I had the Paralympic thing, so I had kind of a skill set or something to go off of, and I said, this is what I'm used to doing, but I'll do anything, you know. And I did camps for kids with disabilities with sports, and I did rolling silverware for, you know, banquets, and it didn't matter what I was doing, I was just volunteering. But through them saying that I was willing to volunteer and work there and work my way up and do it for free, it opens doors for you. So I would say, if you have a passion, find some community resource or some place in the community that does that, and just go and
Start hanging out.
start
Start spending your time there. They'll get to know you.
and volunteer, like, and tell them, you know, I'm available such and such, like, work it around your, you know, school or around your transportation or whatever, but be like, I'm interested, I want to volunteer with you. And then, like you said, they'll get to know you, and then it opens up, and one thing leads to another, and you know, eventually you'll get something paid. And
I'm hearing a recurring thing of you both kind of saying, put yourself out there.
Yeah.
And I think that's a scary thing for people to do, whether you have a disability or not, because you're always worried that they're going to slam that door, or they're going to
Fear of rejection is a
Right.
big thing for a lot of people.
Right.
Me.
And it's like, but you can't, I mean, because, I mean, I was scared of doing this, I'll be honest. You know, just because I'm not used to, like...
And now it's, like, hard to you shut up.
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
I'm just kidding.
No, but, like, I'm just saying that, like, and I get the fear, I do understand it, but it's like, it's like you can't, I mean, it's not just going to show up at your door. So you have to, like, be passionate enough about it to want it bad enough to, like, push yourself and like, put yourself out there, because the worst they can say, like I said earlier, is no. And if no's the worst thing you hear your whole life, you got it pretty good, right?
Yeah.
I think it's the Nike logo. Just do it.
Just
Yes,
do it, yeah.
the
You
Nike
just gotta
logo.
just do it.
I heard a story about how they came up with that, and I think it was actually his receptionist that ended up being like, they wanted some crazy long catchphrase, and she was like, no, what are you guys doing? She's like, and she kind of helped them nail it down. Did you know they started out as a sneaker company for, what college is it out there? It's not Utah or Colorado. The Ducks. Who are the Ducks? Big college out in the north.
Oregon?
Oregon, yeah, that's where it started. They started making track shoes out there.
Wow.
I think that's how they started.
I didn't know that, but it's
And
funny.
They blew up.
It's funny that he brought up Just Do It, because he didn't know this, but before we went live, I had
I don't
before
even know what she's gonna say.
before we went
We're live right now.
before we went live, I had thought about, like, a piece of my advice for employment, school, whatever your dreams are, is just do it. But I hadn't told Logan that, so it's funny that he brought that
They're
up.
on it. It's a connection you guys have.
I'm a mind reader.
and it's funny because I wore my Dreamcatcher shirt on purpose, because I was gonna say, like, if you want to reach your dreams, you just have to go catch them. But it's
I wore my
literally
bow tie on purpose because I
I
like bow
love,
ties.
I love the bow tie.
yeah,
That's why I wore it.
I do.
snazzy.
And I think even at UAB you had a bow tie on as well. I can't remember.
I did.
At that
Is
lecture.
it a trademark? Like, is that the thing?
Yeah.
Well, and I like the
Logan
bow
and
tie
his
colors.
bow tie.
It's not even just the bow tie. It's like the actual style of it. I think it looks good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You got me thinking maybe I
Totally.
should do a bow tie, but I'm not going to steal his style. This is like, if I came on with a bow tie, they'd be like, oh, he's trying to copy Logan.
Yeah.
He's a wannabe.
Well, that's why I asked if it's a trademark. Like, is it a style thing?
I don't really know if I have a trademark, but
Well, maybe now you do.
I like bow ties.
When did you start wearing bow ties?
When I was a student at my community college, because this Student Sports Services
Yeah.
director, Miss Curtis, her husband Bill Curtis. I mean, I was into neckties then, and then he came in with the bow tie, and I was like, I want one. And then I wore these pre-tie bow ties. And he came in and he was like, I tie all my bow ties, and he showed me how to tie them, and I've been hooked ever since.
You know what I've thought about wearing? I've never worn before. You see it a lot out in the South.
An eye patch?
An eye patch. No, I've never thought about wearing. Maybe on Halloween I'll wear an eye patch, but those I don't even know what they're called. But they're usually like turquoise, like the Indian gemstone, and they're kind of cowboy where you just put them around and you kind of do that. But then
Bolo?
I don't bolos.
Bolo.
Yeah, I thought about getting one of those. They're kind of cool. I lived in Arizona for a few years, and a lot of people had them out there.
Yeah.
But I've never bought one. So maybe maybe I'll kind of do the bow tie with a bolo. I'll just do a bolo. And we'll have to do another one. Another live broadcast.
That'll be fun.
I wear my bow tie, you wear your bolo.
My bolo. I'll have to get like a cowboy hat or something with it. Or some boots. I'll have to go all out. Alright, we're getting way too far down a random road here.
Is there any
Yeah.
comments?
Not yet. So I haven't. Normally we'll have Full Life Ahead, but they're busy today. So normally I have them moderating chat. But for people watching, if you just want to say hi, just type in hi, and I'll read it right off the phone. Or if you have any specific questions or anything that they would like us to talk about, any topics or anything that you guys would like to be brought up. Swallowing my gum here.
Uh-oh. Don't show.
That
Don't-
sound good.
Don't do that.
That doesn't sound good.
Little-
And here I was nervous I'd be the one passing out.
I know. Well, we talked about it before, and I was like, I get nervous before every broadcast.
I know. That
Usually-
did make me feel better, though, I have to say.
It usually takes me a few minutes to get going, then it's like, all right, we're cool, we're good.
Oh, now I'm totally fine. It just took me a while.
Another thing I'd like to talk about is some transitioning from different periods of your life and in different organizations or schools. I feel like there's sometimes key transitions there, whether it's middle school to high school to college or employment. Have you guys had any of those transitions? Personal stories that you'd like to share, either success or maybe it was more difficult that you thought?
When I was going from, I can't remember if it was from community college to university, Lakeshore had this program where they came out and they taught us everything we need to know to be a advocate for yourself. And I didn't think I got anything out of it, but then went to college and I went to UAB and I was like, maybe that class was a lot beneficial.
Like it kind of stuck with you.
It did, and they gave us this binder, and yeah. So I think I've used every single thing we talked about in that class, and it was in the Gaston State Community College Ayers Campus Library, and
Now you said that was offered by Lakeshore,
it was.
so Lakeshore went up to Gadsden.
Yeah, it was my campus, my community college. Gaston State has many campuses. Two in Gaston, one in Cherokee County, and one in Anniston. I went to the Anniston campus, Ayers campus. and the Lakeshore came to the Ayers campus library and taught that class. I think it was called transition.
I think it's cool that they gave you a binder afterward, just so that it's not only just.
It was like a workbook and a binder. It was pretty awesome.
Side note, I love Lakeshore. I have a family member that goes to Lakeshore, and I think they're superb. I didn't know they got into the transitioning stuff like that, though. I thought it was more of like a gym and a workout YMCA kind of thing.
I think it's like,
they are contracted through vocational rehabilitation, and that's the services that I receive.
So there are two different buildings actually. Where
she knows best.
Where he
she worked there. We're good.
Yeah.
Well, where he's talking about getting those services from is actually the building next to the gym that you were talking about just a minute ago.
Okay.
And where I actually did reception was the gym part. But they are connected, like, so they'll send people like back and forth, because if you have a disability and you need to work out, you go here, and the driving school and the other services and stuff are in that other building. But
There's a driving school there.
Yes.
I'm learning all of this.
Accessible driving.
Yeah,
and
like
the
they
real
can-
driver's training in the car, I think.
They can, the actual driver's training in the car, and you can get the hand controls installed and stuff. I did that for a while until I got diagnosed with a disability that made it where I can't finish getting my license, and it was frustrating. But that's part of it too. So there's a lot of different resources, but going back to your question as far as big moments.
Transitioning. Big moments of transition.
My first one that I can really remember, I was in, it was my last IEP meeting before going to high school. So I guess I was an 8th grader.
Yes, you were about 12 or 13 at that point.
Yeah.
Something like
and it was the first time that, like, my IEP, because you get an IEP if you have disabilities throughout your school career to make sure you get your accommodations. Well, my coordinator had not told me, but she just came and got me out of class, math class, which I don't like math, so that was fine with me.
Oh,
but
yeah.
then she
you want
was
me to
like,
go there? Well, I'm coming.
Yeah, exactly. But then she was like, "Oh, by the way, you're sitting in on your IEP today." I'm what? And so then it's a really powerful thing, because it all of a sudden gives you a voice to tell your teachers and the administrators and your parents and, like, everybody that's in your IEP meeting to support you. You get an active voice to say, this is what I need, or this could be better, or this year went good because of this, or bad because of such, or what have you. But it was also terrifying, because you're 12, 13, and you're sitting around a table with a bunch of adults that are supposed to be in charge of you, and you're supposed to respect them, and then you're supposed to, like, they're asking your opinion and wanting to know what they did good and bad, and I'm like, I don't want to tell my English teacher what she did good and bad, and, like...
I don't like Mrs. Nancy.
Exactly. Yeah, like...
She's still your teacher, but
Yeah.
you want to say, hey, these are the kind of things that I appreciated and some of the things that didn't work.
Yeah, and
That's
so...
a role reversal at a young age.
It's like, and so it's, like, very intimidating. And as I progressed throughout, like, high school and stuff, it became easier because it just became the normal. But, like, that first year I went in there, and I promise I was shaking, and it was like, I probably started out by saying, like, 4 words, and they were, like, asking me, they're like, so because they plan from one IEP, like, they plan from, like, these were her targeted goals, she met them, like, these are what we're gonna bump it up to, like, and I was supposed to be in on the goal making process, and they're saying, you know, she can be in all regular classes now, she doesn't need to be pulled out for any, like, support services for certain things and stuff, which was a major achievement. But they're asking me if all this is good, and all I remember doing is, yep, okay. Like, I was so intimidated that I was just, like, going with whatever, because I was intimidated. But, like, those are really important moments to say, this is where I need help, or you're allowed to say, no, I don't think that'll work. Mm-hmm. Like, and parents oftentimes, even if you're doing it for your younger child, and so you're kind of their advocate in those IEP meetings, don't be afraid to tell schools or just because the principal's in there or some of your child's teachers or whatever, don't be afraid to say, if something's not working, bring it up. Like, you don't have to, it's not about telling them everything they're doing wrong, but bring it up, because the only way it gets better, or the only way that'll change, or your child can progress more, is if you speak up and say, that we thought that would be a good idea at the beginning of the year, but it hasn't worked out because of these reasons or whatever. Like, don't be afraid. You don't have to say yes to everything.
Now, so that brings up a really good point. Can you, normally an IEP meeting is what, every 12 months, every year, or do you do it every quarter?
Every year.
Every year.
You do it every year.
You can call an IEP meeting if something's not working at any time.
Yes.
So-
You can call, it's like, and schools have different terms for it and what have you, but at my school it was like you could call emergency IEP meetings if like something wasn't working, or if you were having a real problem with this teacher, because say you're in middle school or high school or something, and your teacher, like, because you get a copy of it after you sign the IEP and everybody agrees to it, because everybody there signed it, including the student if they're there for it. And so everybody signs it. So you get a copy to take home with you stuff. And say you're in math class and okay, I'm supposed to have this extended time on something, or she's supposed to stop teaching when I leave, and that's not happening. You can go to your caseworker, or your parents can, and say, we need an emergency IEP meeting because they're not following all the IEP goals.
I feel like that kind of relieves some stress that could be in that annual IEP meeting, because you'd feel like, I have to get this right for the next 12 months. But if you know that you can call an IEP meeting in a week or a month or 2 months, then it's like, okay, we'll figure this out. Because those goals may change over the year.
It does.
Yes.
Every year they have to revisit those goals. And I mean,
Right.
I don't really remember my IEP meetings. So that's why I'm letting Mallory talk. And but
It's okay.
yeah, the goals change from year to year, and that's one of the parts where the student, the person that the IEP meeting is about, has the most say so in.
Yes.
But that's what I think.
But
But it's been a
also,
while since I've been in one.
Yeah.
like, they can change, like, if you met all your goals by 6 months in, then your teacher or your caseworker or yourself may say, we need another one to establish new goals, because
Let's
he's
keep you
already
going.
he's already done all this.
Yeah.
He needs to do more, like, we need to set new goals so he'll keep doing more and stuff like that.
I imagine trying to go like, if I made a goal for a year, and I think that's a good practice for really anybody.
Yeah.
Make your yearly goals and then try and smash them in a couple months, and then get new goals.
Right. It's kind of like that idea that I shared earlier about keep moving forward. Don't ever settle for just, this is okay. I've plateaued. This is okay. Like,
I'd like to quote Dory off Finding Nemo. Just keep swimming, just keep swimming, just keep swimming, swimming, swimming.
that's one of my favorite parts of this.
I don't remember that. I'm gonna have to go back and watch Finding Nemo. What part was that? Was it the
It was a part where
sharks?
He was
part?
trying.
no,
he was trying to
jellyfish,
find
the
his
jellyfish.
Okay, they're going. Okay. Now
Yeah.
I don't remember that saying, but I remember that scene.
And
And-
so it was Dory and Marlin when they were getting down about getting stung by the jellyfish, and Dory just popped up and she started singing. It's like, just keep swimming, just keep swimming.
But
That's got to be a GIF online that I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, but yeah, and so when you're down, when your kid is down, and you're going through IEP meetings with goals that are unmet goals, you just gotta keep swimming, because everyone has their own timetable,
yes,
and so
that's a very good point.
it's okay if Billy Bob isn't doing what the IEP goals are. He'll get there. He'll just need some more time.
Or it's okay if you don't mesh with a certain teacher. Sometimes, because teachers, just like, the regular people, they have different teaching styles, different way they do things. And so another interesting fact is
I always thought the teachers were supposed to give me the answer for the test.
if
Before
you're, if you're
Where's the key for this test?
exactly
I didn't get the key for the test today.
if you're not meshing with a teacher, don't be afraid to go to your coordinator for your IEP and say, this really isn't working. Because I remember my ninth grade math year. I spent half a year in this one teacher's room, and I was struggling and it just wasn't working, and I was becoming frustrated, and I didn't like myself because I thought I wasn't smart enough and all this stuff. And they transitioned me to it after having a meeting and everything. They transitioned me to a different teacher, and it was like I took off and here I go, and I'm getting the math concepts and I'm doing all this thing. And but a lot of people, whether it's parents or students, they fear I'm going to make this person mad, or I'm going to upset so and so. You have to do what's best for you, not what necessarily like worry about upsetting the teacher or whatever. Because if it's not working for you and you're not learning, then you need to be moved to somebody else's class. I feel like a lot of teachers, they won't necessarily take that personally, unless you're just really mean about it.
If you're mean about
yeah,
it.
if you're mean
I don't
about
like
it.
your hair,
Yeah, or I don't like you, or
Yeah.
well, you're just not a very good teacher. Obviously, don't say those things, but just, it's okay to be moved. It's okay to be switched. It's okay to say something's not working.
I read somewhere the other day, it was like, if you want the quickest path to failure, try to make everybody happy.
Exactly.
You can't do it.
You just
You
can't.
can't make everybody happy.
With anything in life.
We got questions?
No, not yet.
I see 2 little green bubbles.
Those are 2 people that are kind of watching in here. So if you want to give them a shout out,
Can't really see.
say hey.
Hey, Stephanie.
Hi.
And hey, Nina.
Do you guys know Stephanie?
The last name doesn't ring a bell.
She lives up. I've met Stephanie maybe like 2 years ago. She lives up kind of near Huntsville, and she's on a couple different boards. And I think I met her through maybe Full Life Ahead or another camp. Do you guys know Full Life Ahead?
I've heard of Full Life Ahead. I used to have a friend that worked there, but I didn't ever get to really find out like all about them or what they're about.
They do a lot of transitioning, like out of high school and post.
Okay.
Yeah, in the community living kind of stuff.
That's good. And like, because the more, like, sometimes you need that guide, especially if like you're not as like likely to put yourself forward. Sometimes you need that organization or that group that has been there before and can say, look, this is how you do it, which is one thing I like about us making our live is you can look back on this and go, okay, what did they say about the rehab services or what do they say about this, and you can find it.
Or what did they say about that workbook that you didn't think you got anything from and then like a couple months in you're like, you know what, I'm glad I took that course.
Yeah. Exactly.
Then
and that was just an extra course. It wasn't open to everyone, and it was just awesome. It wasn't for credit. You had to pay for it. It was just an amazing course.
it paid dividends after taking it.
It was just an amazing course that I took for granted until it put me in a situation. I was like,
You realized you needed that information.
I was like, maybe I should have listened more. Stopped acting a fool. Nah, it's okay.
One of the other things I'd like to talk about is some accessible equipment and maybe some sporting equipment. Have you guys had any experience with maybe vehicle modifications or equipment in general? And this might be a little bit more for Mallory.
Go on, Mallerie.
Well,
Preach.
I have. Hopefully, I'm not doing that. I have experience with like athletic equipment, and I cannot remember the name of the place now. But when he brought up car modifications, I have experience with that too. But I'll have to go home and like look up the name of the place I use, because I got hand controls put in my vehicle before I knew that I wasn't medically going to be able to drive through a place. But I'll have to find the name for it. But as far as like sporting equipment goes, or being athletic or active, there's a couple places. Lakeshore Foundation that we mentioned before has like a fund for the kids through their programs that'll raise money to help get kids wheelchair basketball chairs, track chairs, cycles, and then also there's an organization called Challenged Athletes Foundation, and you can look them up, and there's an application process, and you need like references and stuff, which could be a coach, a friend. Who the reference is doesn't matter. You just need, and you need to explain why you want the adaptive equipment and how it'll help you, whether it's being active in your community, having fun with your family and friends, or whether it's, I want to be a wheelchair basketball player, so I need this wheelchair basketball chair. Like, you don't have to just be a competitive athlete to need equipment. And the really great thing about Challenged Athletes Foundation is they divide their resources to help as many people as possible, which is good. But they also, like, people don't realize how key organizations like that is, or how much it's needed, and how much fundraising and helping is needed, because a wheelchair basketball chair can be $3,000 to $6,000. Like, it's not something you can just...
Oh, that's a lot more expensive than just buying a basketball.
Right. Or, like, for instance, another good note to make is, like, people want to be active with their families, or, like, you know how most people buy their kid a bike for Christmas. Well, an adapted bike is thousands. It's not just go down to Walmart and buy your friend or nephew or niece or family member a bike from Walmart that's like $40 or something, or
$100.
$100.
Rack is
Yeah,
$100 or
like,
something like that.
You can't do that. These have to be specifically made, specifically measured. And so funding and grants like Challenged Athletes Foundation and other places, they give kids the opportunity to not only partake in sports and be active and stuff, but they also give them the opportunity to be part of the community and just go for a bike ride with your friends. And that speaks to the social development of kids. And
that brings up a really good point, the social development at an early age, to be inclusive there, to have those experiences, that kind of stuff is important.
Yeah, and people don't realize how much social and emotional benefit people get from being active, and the physical benefit of being healthy too. You know, medical professionals will tell you, like, just everybody needs to be active. Well, when you need a basketball chair to be active, or you need an accessible bike that's thousands of dollars to be active, like, I part of my goals in life is to make those things more readily, whether it's readily accessible or whether it's through fundraising. I find options to be able to get more kids bikes and wheelchairs to play sports with and stuff. It's huge, because, like, we push for them to be active and healthy and things, and it's like there's a barrier there between wanting to, having the funds to, and being able to. Whereas if we could find resources in, like, the Challenged Athletes Foundation grant and different things, and the Lakeshore grant that you can apply for and everything, that opens up options to get kids healthier and active, because it can really impact their social and emotional
long-term
well-being.
Over the lifetime.
It can really impact those things, you know. And, like, not having the option to go play tennis with their friend may make them more, like we were talking about earlier, some people are more reserved not to ask to go do things. Well, if you don't have the equipment, or you know it's going to be a problem getting the equipment, then you're less likely to say, hey, can I? Because you're going to be like, no, that question's already been answered.
Yeah.
But sometimes too, it's simple. You can, I mean, I remember when I was young, I didn't have weights around my house because no one else was really into athletics. I used soup cans and 2-liter soda bottles as weights and stuff, and I'm
That's
not.
being pretty creative.
Yeah, it's
That's
like
it.
you.
I'm having
Like-
chicken noodle soup. I gotta tumble it up before we eat it.
Yeah,
like,
like-
Rocky Balboa
but-
over here.
I know.
But
Yeah.
you gotta like.
Yeah.
You gotta like. It goes back to if you have a passion for it, you'll find a way. But
Just
it
do
doesn't
it.
have to be like complicated. Or like PE teachers in schools that I've worked in, they've been like, how do I include this? They want to be inclusive, but they don't know how. A lot of times it's really easy. Just ask them, because yes, they may be young kids,
They're
but a lot of
scared to
times
ask.
you have to
Yeah.
know. Like even from a young age, kids know because they have to, because you can't depend on, like, society is not typically going to know, so the kid learns early that I have to know how to
You have
do
to build
this.
it at an early age to gain that confidence all throughout, and and as long as you do it early, it'll keep growing on top of itself.
Right.
Compound interest.
And it's like, that's how, but I do a lot of, through my wanting to be a teacher and working with students in schools and stuff, I do a lot of, like, I'll work with PE teachers while I'm at the school and stuff of how can, how can we help our students be involved with the other students in sports and stuff, because it goes back to my point earlier of it's not about if, it's about how. But a lot of times I have insights just from being in a chair that if you're a PE teacher that's never being in a chair, you may go, can they do it that way? Like, you don't necessarily know where that limit is of could they do it that way. And it's a trial and error thing sometimes, and that's okay too.
Yeah,
Like-
it's all nobody. It's funny. Sometimes you get into a room where you're like, all these people are, on a higher up. You get maybe into a government meeting or something. You're like, these guys are Harvard grads, Yale grads, and they're at top. They know everything, and you get in there, and they're like, well, they have similar questions that I'm thinking too. Like,
Yeah.
we're all just kind of figuring this out.
As we go. And see, the thing is too, the kids will be okay with that. If it turns out to be, I've had so many things turn out, and thought, oh, they can play baseball this way, and then it turns out to be this big flop and it doesn't work. But the kids just appreciate the effort of you trying to include like, they get it. If it doesn't work, it's okay. So then you go back next time and you're like, okay, X this off. We know that didn't work. Let's try it this way. But the child, or a birthday party for a friend at a young age, if it doesn't work, they're gonna be okay with it. But they'll appreciate the fact that you tried.
I agree with you. You have to put in the effort there and make the attempt. This is kind of an off-the-wall question. I've never asked it before on a broadcast.
Okay.
No.
He already says
It's
no.
not really a no. It's so if you had a magic wand and there was something that you just point the magic wand at and said this would be easier or this would be done as it pertains to the community, what would that be?
Oh, you don't want to know my answer?
Go ahead.
Go.
I don't think it's...
It's all appropriate. If you don't want to talk about it, it's okay.
No limits. I haven't formulated my answer yet. You have to go.
Actually, let me change my answer. I had a magic wand. I could change anything I wanted to.
Okay, so I've got mine.
The mindset.
But it's, yes. See, I was just about to say the viewpoint, the way people view
What did you say there? You
disability.
agreed. What was your
I said the mindset.
the mindset?
He said
of
the mindset.
Everyone, I don't know, the mindset of I may have a disability, but look what I can do.
Yes.
I mean, that's...
And I said the viewpoint was what I was going to say, is the viewpoint of how others view it. Because a lot of times, whether and sometimes it's unintentional. Like people don't always intentionally look at you and think you're capable of less, but it's like this unintentional thing in their brain, because they look at it and they think how hard, from an able-bodied perspective, some people look at it and think how hard that must be if it was them, because they look
Or
at it
they're
and
scared.
see hard.
Because it's something new that they're
Yes.
not familiar
Because
with.
something they don't know, and they're scared of it. Like,
Yeah.
what if such and such happens and they get hurt, or what if such and
Exactly.
such happens and they're whatever it may be, but it's just negative.
Right.
Just changing that viewpoint. It's like, include me, and I'll show you what I can do.
Right.
Don't doubt me.
Don't limit me based off like your perception, and that's why I say sometimes it can be intentional, but most of the time, 99% of the time, it's not intentional. It's just they look at it and think it could be hard, so
It's like trying to make a decision for you in a way. Like,
yeah. And it's funny though to me that we had the same answer.
that is really intriguing
in
for
different
me.
words,
I might start
like,
asking this question more and more and see if
in
that's
different
something that pops up.
words. Like,
Yeah.
I use viewpoint, he used mindset, but it basically means the same way. That's the one thing I would say that I would change above all else. Like, because that's the thing that matters most. Because if you change that viewpoint or mindset and leave the door open, then the possibilities are limitless. And that's why I was saying earlier that, like, kids, like, or he said, just do it. Like, you kind of have to just go grab the world and do it.
Grab
And
the bull by the horns.
if teachers are hesitant, then you just grab it and do it, regardless. And they'll come around.
First question?
Mrs. Minor, Stephanie, that is with us here, she says hello to both of you.
Hi.
Hello.
And she answered the question as well, Magic Wand. She says transportation and viewpoint.
See, we all seem to have that commonality of the viewpoint, but it's because,
I said mindset though.
Yeah.
well, mindset and viewpoint are the
They
same
are.
thing in different words.
They are.
But
you're both kind of saying the same thing, is there's a disconnect there with a majority of the population that's just not, that you wish would be better.
yes.
It would be a little different.
And because if you open up that mindset, then it goes back to, like he said, just do it. Like, then we'll show you how capable we are. Like, I have no problem proving myself. Like, just showing you how I do
Meet me on the
things.
line.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that goes back to that is me talking about earlier that I'm an open book, and he said it at one point that he feels like he's a pretty open book. We're being open books so that other people can learn, because that's the only way anything changes.
That we're not so different.
I'm doing, that we're not so different from you or our neighbors in our community or anywhere else. I'm doing the live that terrifies me so that people realize that, you know,
You're overcoming your fears.
we're all the same. I'm nervous around cameras, but
I am
you
too.
might be nervous of something else. But the nervousness is a commonality. Like,
Well, they say people's biggest fear is public speaking.
yeah.
And it was like,
I go around giving speeches about life after traumatic brain injury, which is what I have.
Wow.
And
That's amazing.
done a
Kudos.
good bit of speaking, and although I'm at a lull right now because no one's really asked me to speak, but I never really was afraid of public speaking.
I was going to ask if
I mean, I get a little jittery, but like when I'm in front of people, but I just let it slide off my back.
Well, unlike my comrade here, I was terrified, but I'm fine now.
Are we Russian now?
I hope not.
I'm kidding.
from Mother Russia.
Exactly.
So you didn't get nervous before your first speech at all?
No, not really.
I
Well,
get
you
nervous
know-
every time.
Although I did get kind of nervous speaking in front of Alabama APSI at Mobile, and yeah,
Was it their conference?
Yeah, their
See,
national conference or whatever.
Yeah.
There was a lot of people there, and I got my own breakout session.
Mm-hmm.
But so the whole time I was like, "Hey, come to my session."
So you had everybody come.
Yeah, they didn't. Yeah, it was standing room only.
It's
Good
kind of backfired a little bit there.
Yeah,
you have good self-promotional skills.
Yeah, and so it was so packed.
I just spilled my water on me.
And I was so packed. It was just standing room only, and it was was like full. And I was like, y'all should let me have it, my own little session in the main conference area. Like, nah. I was like, okay then.
Get it?
The first time I spoke in front of people, I think it was in high school, and I was mortified. Oh, I was like shaking in my boots.
You wore boots?
Yeah, in my boots. And I didn't have my bolo on yet. That's probably why I was nervous. If I'd have had that, I had a little bit of the protection.
Well, I get
Was
nervous
this
every
before or
time.
after you had your motorcycle?
This was after. No, maybe it might have been right before. I was class officer starting junior year. So junior and senior year, I was class officer. And I had to speak to the class first, and then I spoke at graduation. I was mortified. I was shaking up there. But
Wow.
Stephanie Miner also says, guinea pigs for progress.
What?
Guinea pigs for progress.
That's a new one.
So I'm thinking she's saying, by being an open book and by being out there, that kind of being a leader, and seeing what that is for other people. You know what we should do? One of these times we're going to do a call-in where people can call in and we can bring them up and hear them. We should do some of that next time. I'm
Okay.
not prepped for that right now with the software, but that would be cool to do.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Because then we can do it where it's split screens on here, and you see the caller, like they just go like this and call in, and then everybody else can see. It's pretty cool software.
And see, now that I'm comfortable, I won't be as nervous next time. Hopefully.
Well, we've been going for quite a while, and I have to go to the restroom as well. So before we kind of close out here, I would just like to ask:
Close to 2 hours.
It's been good. This is the longest one we've ever done so far.
Really?
Yeah, but I feel
Record
like
setting.
I feel like it's been easy. Like it's been very easy flowing.
I just let her speak, and I agree. And
Am I dominating? I'm sorry.
No, you're
No, it's
not.
Is there anything that we haven't talked about, or that you would like to say to anyone that maybe a couple years younger than you, maybe in the future will be going through something similar that you've gone through, or any parents?
Okay, so growing up and now, I hear this one particular word, and it doesn't apply to me, but it just irks me, or whatever. It is retarded, but that word is so powerful. You do not understand how powerful it is, and it offends so many people. And so if you're a parent, if you're a kid, if you're an adult, please don't use that word. Please, you don't understand who it affects when you say it, and
It's a sharp word, and it's an outdated word. I know it's something that used to be used like back in the
all the time.
day. Yeah.
And then they were like, maybe we shouldn't use that word. Yeah. And so they stopped. But it's been a while ago.
Yeah.
My one piece of advice is something I learned from my track coach when I started at 14. And I learned through
Sky's
Super
the limit?
Sports Saturday. No.
I thought
That's
she
a
was going
good
with
one,
Just Do It.
though. That's a
Just
good
do
one,
it.
though. No, I was going to say take can't out of your vocabulary. That was something that from like an early age.
I agree.
Like I said can't at a practice or something one time when I was young, just out of habit or whatever, and he was like, no, there is no can't. Take that word out of your vocabulary. And it's something I use with the kids today, and like it stuck with me,
Yeah.
Just take that word out, and there's so many more possibilities if you just don't allow yourself to go down that path of, well, I can't do this, because I never would have thought I was doing what I'm doing right now. Like if you had asked me 3 weeks ago would I be doing this, I would have said no way, like definitely
Okay.
not.
And all it takes is one pool party.
Yeah, exactly. And one Alex.
I might.
Any drinks?
Yeah, there were a few beers there.
Yeah,
a couple
we
of
had
drinks.
fun.
It was a pool party.
Come now.
Yeah. I think I might headline this video. Just do it. It's kind of a motto we've been going back and forth on.
Yeah,
So.
that would be a
do
good
it.
title.
Well, at this point, we don't have any other questions. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in this week. I'd like to thank Mr. Logan Davis and Mrs. Mallerie. How do you spell your last name? Or say your last name.
Carin,
I've been saying Carin, I think.
you're fine.
Yeah.
Carin,
Carin, yeah.
It doesn't matter.
And
You pronounced her last name like Curry when you were talking on the phone.
did I?
No.
It's okay.
Well, you're calling me out now.
Yeah. Just kidding.
But yeah, we will see you guys next week.